It's Tuesday, November 27th, 2012. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight, the board game Seasons. It's all right.
You can just give it away. What?
Spoilers.
Let's do this.
So this past weekend, our friends Phil and Sr.A came out, and we had a sort of post-Thanksgiving feast.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a big boy now. There's a point in your life when you're able to cook a full Thanksgiving family-style dinner and not feel like you're just faking it. I feel like I'm actually an old man now.
Way to go.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself.
Add it to your list of things that make you an old man that started, 10 years ago.
Let's see. Has played Counter Strike for more than a decade? Check.
Everyone should go to the forum and check that picture I put up where it shows on Wikipedia the date Steam came out, and then shows right under it a picture from my Steam profile.
What's funny is the
date of my Steam account creation was
the
the
kids
date
out
Steam
there
came out.
Responding to you clearly have no sense of when games come out and what was important, because Steam, when it came out, existed solely to download Counter Strike patches.
And also, because Juan had died, you needed to find servers to play on using Steam, which is a much improved UI over. The problem was Steam itself at the time did not work for many people.
Well,
worked for me.
Remember when Steam...
It's never not worked for me.
For the longest time, the Friends stuff just didn't fucking work.
Well, they had the Friends stuff in there as like, they put the GUI and framework in there before they had the network up.
But it just didn't do anything.
Right, and it's like, why did you put this in here if it's not working yet? And then when they even had it working, it's like the Friends servers weren't always running. So they'd be like on and off and on and off. So basically you just ignored that shit. Now it pretty much works.
Yeah.
But it really, all it was when Steam originally came out was automatically get Counter-Strike patches without having to go to counter-strike.net and click on every mirror, and which is why all those mirror sites died. And two, find Counter-Strike servers.
But so this weekend, our friend Sr.A recommended we go to a tea place. So we got together and we went out to Flushing to this place called Fang Gourmet Tea.
I did not go.
And, well, yeah, of course you didn't. Would you want to go have a tea tasting with us?
No, I don't like tea.
So basically what this was, we had the equivalent of a sommelier, but for tea.
Mm-hmm.
And we did tastings, and the sommelier explained, like, what each tea was.
But when you make tea, right, it's like if you have wine, you can take a bottle of wine and pour a little bit.
Yeah, so she did this complicated thing.
And then you can give little bits to people at another table. Right, and it's like, you're not really wasting it. When you make tea, it's like there's a minimum amount of tea you make from some number of leaves.
No, you can make single glasses of tea.
Right, but if you're having a tasting, how many glasses of tea are you gonna have? 5
tiny ones that are each one sip per type of tea.
Really?
Yeah.
So how do they? But you make tea in a teapot. They have a whole pot full.
No. You make tea in a teapot if you're making tea in bulk.
Okay, so what do they
basically
make it in?
what she'd do is
a tea thimble?
First, she'd take out the tea leaves for the particular tea. We tried a high mountain Taiwanese.
Did they take like one leaf, put it in a cup, and put water in there?
First, and then we tried something else, some kind of roasted black tea, and then a raw pour. Basically, what she'd do is she'd take the leaves out and show them to us and explain like where it came from and the characteristics.
Lick the leaves.
Pass the leaves around, futz with them. Then she'd put enough for one small pot into a little thing and pour hot water over it. Let it steep for a little bit, rinse it out, and do all this stuff. And then she'd pour each of us a little glass. And she'd repeat this 5 times. You could re-steep what she had poured out 5 times. And she'd point out how the flavors change with each steeping.
Mm-hmm. I guess steeping number 6 tastes like water?
Actually, no. Apparently, that only happens to shitty tea.
So, but you did it 5 times. So I'm saying the 6th time would have.
We could have done more. She said that she'll steep tea herself 7 or 8 times. What was cool?
So tea number 10 tastes like water.
Maybe. The coolest thing was that she was so much like the girl in Drops of God who wants to be a sommelier. It was ridiculous. She lives alone and she works in this place and she's worked here for many years and she does the tea tastings. And of course, she tasted each tea too as she was preparing everything for us. She knows her shit. Like, she knows tea really well. And then she was telling us about how at home she makes the tea herself and does the same thing. Like,
she own the place or what? No.
So she does the same thing the Drops of God girl does. She tastes the tea at home and practices and learns. And it was, I don't know, it was really fun. And as cool as it was,
you should have given her Drops of God.
I am not going to learn much more about this because I have enough on my hands with beer and wine.
I already have too many. I already took on too many things. You should see the robots.
Scott, one could say that my cup overfloweth.
Yeah, I just bought these plastic robots. Right, I bought the RG. They actually made. Remember in Gundam Seed, there was the jet that the kid would fly.
Oh yeah,
I forget the kid's name, right? And it would deploy the different equipment onto the Strike Gundam. So I said, whoa, they made a model of that thing and it's RG. I got to get that, right? Because it's like usually just make robots, but they're making the jet. I'd be like, sold, right? And then I'm like, you know what? I'll buy the Strike Gundam also because, that's also RG. Why not? Apparently they go together and the jet actually comes with the equipment to deploy onto the Strike Gundam. So if you buy both, which I now have, you can switch the Strike Gundam to have, the big green desert backpack thing or, the sword thing.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
Wow. And I forgot about that entire aspect of Gundam Seed. Now I kind of just want to watch Gundam Seed again.
Well, we're going to steal it back from Scott Johnson very soon.
You want to do the Utena analysis of Gundam Seed?
Gundam Seed has a lot of recap episodes.
Yeah.
And it's also got maybe too many episodes. I think we'd be better off doing some Evangelion after we do Utena.
That would be a good one.
I think that is the one.
We'll see. If we do one a week, it'll be 39 or 40 weeks.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move along. Some news. Ready?
All right,
okay,
so the Wii U came out.
Wii U.
Didn't buy one.
Didn't buy one.
Nintendo's stock not reacting
so
well. Every GameStop I have passed in New York City has had plenty of the white one, and all but one of them had at least one, if not more, of the black ones.
Really? I haven't seen anyone actually have the black one.
Dude, I was out in
stock.
Flushing. There was a pile of both just in the goddamn window.
Uh-oh.
And
see, here's the thing that, I'm going to say it again, right? I mean, there's always the stuff that we know and have said about Nintendo. You can listen to old podcasts.
Dude, look at that stock chart I linked to. It's like Nintendo's stock peaked after the Wii.
I'm not going to repeat myself. You've heard this before. If you haven't, you can go hear it again. But I want to say is that those things that we have said in the past are more true now than they were before. Right? We've said things, for example, man, if Nintendo would just open up and let anyone make software on their shit, they would really rock the house. That's more true now. If you could write any software you wanted for that pad with that thing, they would be selling even more. That's, it's more true for the Wii U than it was for the Wii and the DS, right? It's if somebody would just make a game like the game we said, like Four Swords, and everyone would buy it, that's more true now. So it's the disappointment, lack of potential is just
That's what's bothering me. The analogy I used on the forum.
The gap has just widened, but nothing has changed.
It's such a, for me, now not for the market at large, but for me, it's such a too little, too late thing. It's like, to use an analogy I used on the forum, around 2002, when in the early GameCube days.
The GameCube was brand new.
Link cables, all that stuff. Nintendo had a party going on, and they had plenty of beer. Beer being the analogy for games that were innovative and cool and different, the kind of stuff that is my jam. And then the beer ran out, as happens at parties. Nintendo wouldn't buy any more beer, so I left, and I went back to the PC gaming party. 10 years later...
beer, it's cheap beer. Well, it's all varieties of beer on the PC.
Well, the thing is...
But it overfloweth.
The PC beer party had been nothing but Budweiser for a while, and suddenly it came back. We're not always right. I mean, no.
I think the PC beer party sells...
We were right in the sense that PC gaming was out of beer back when we said it was dead. But a new PC gaming has emerged.
And now that is every microbrew in the universe, and also the prices have come crashing down. So the PC gaming right now is freaking every fancy microbrew for $1.
So after Crystal Chronicles, the beer ran out, and 10 years later, give or take, I get an invite to Nintendo's party. They're like, hey, we got a couple of cans of beer if you want to come back over.
How many cans?
Join our party.
And how much are they? It's a $300 can. How much does a Wii U even cost?
And basically, the games that people are saying are great fun on the Wii U right now are basically Pac-Man Verse.
At best.
A game that has existed for a long time.
Holy shit, a Wii U is $420. That can't be right.
Is that the deluxe one that comes with the...
I guess at the Amazon price, because... I don't know.
That's the deluxe one?
Let me go. That can't be the real price. That has to be like the inflated third-party seller price. Let me find the real price from.
Yeah, but here's the most damning thing against the Wii U because I could talk about what I want, but I know that what I want is not what the industry wants or what other gamers want. For example, I want a game like Mega Team Fortress, even though I know that is a shit game.
The deluxe one is $350. God damn. That is way too much money.
So the most damning thing I can say is that I know three parents in different contexts of my life who in the past week have told me they're going to go buy their kids a Nintendo Wii. And upon questioning, I learned that no, they mean the Nintendo Wii. They had no idea a Wii U came out. They had no intention of purchasing one. The idea of paying more than $150 for a console seemed ridiculous to them. And they asked me, what are the hot games on the Wii other than that bowling game? But that bowling game is the only one they actually wanted to buy. This is three people who don't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Normal people have
and
no
nice
idea.
Anecdotes you got there.
No idea that the Nintendo Wii U came out. They think of Nintendo as the company that made the Wii, and they don't know it in any other context. So Nintendo, now couple this with the fact that the regular Wii, the Wii U, the non-deluxe edition, that's basically the bullshit edition, not to selling so well, and a lot of places have plenty in stock. It's the deluxe one that's sold out. So the hardcore Nintendo people who haven't backed away like we have seem to be the primary market now, unless the distribution of which ones are available is just way off. I don't know how this is going to go for Nintendo. I mean,
whatever.
The system came out.
It's the same news over and over again, so I really don't have much to say without just repeating myself and making this part of the podcast incredibly long.
Well, it's not the same news. The last time we talked about this was when the 3DS came out. And
I'm saying it's different consoles, same Nintendo. They haven't changed anything since they have, turned down the dark path, and that's it.
But they turned back. The problem is they turned back so late in the game. I'm trying to think of a good analogy.
They haven't turned back at all. It's the same thing they've been doing for years. They were same complaints. They're still valid. Nothing's changed.
No, what they turned
back on. They just have a new
on,
console with the same complaints.
They went back to doing something a little innovative. The whole asymmetric play, the idea of having a...
But they didn't make any games that did it. It's the same story.
They did. They made...
What game?
They made 3 clones of Pac-Man Verse.
Okay.
So they have made more games that do the same thing. But the console came out. So now we're in the post-release drought, which Nintendo consoles always have. So it's going to be a couple months before anything new comes out. And
Has Nintendo ever fucking launched a console with like an A+ full-on Zelda game ever?
Zelda game?
I mean, come on. It's like, that's the game that people actually want always is Smash Brothers, real Zelda game.
Only hardcore people want Smash Brothers.
I'm saying these are the games people want. They want Smash Brothers.
Mario.
They want hardcore Zelda game, right? They want these things, and they never launch with that. They always bring that out like when the console is like near death.
Well, because that's to bump the sales.
Why don't they make fucking like an awesome Pokemon or something? People love that shit too.
Well, we already know. We did a whole lecture at PAX on how they don't fully utilize Pokemon.
Anyway, let's move on instead of the same Nintendo complaints. So, the big Steam sale happened. Not really that much to buy, so much.
I bought Limbo because it was like $1.
I didn't.
I don't even like Limbo.
But there were 2 interesting things happened. Number 1, there was this game called Hotline Miami. I didn't really know anything about this game at all. But people started talking about it, and it was crazy cheap. But I saw some talk that it was mad buggy. So I was like, all right, I'm going to take one for the team and buy Hotline Miami and see what the deal is. So now I have taken it for the team. I'm going to tell you how it is. It's a single-player game mostly. I didn't see any multiplayer action. I mean, there might be, but I didn't try it out.
I've been too busy playing, I don't know, Counter Strike, NS2, FTL.
It is mad buggy.
Guns of Icarus.
It barely worked. Like, the audio didn't work, and it crashed, and people said the same things online. A lot of people had problems with it. Some people didn't have any problems, but I had problems. I'm going to try it on some different machines, see what happens. And it's actually kind of fun, clever game. The way it works is it's sort of a straight top-down situation. Like, literally, not 3/4, not isometric, straight down. And you're this criminal dude, and you're sitting at home, and you get a phone call. And the phone call's like, hey, I need you to do this job, usually involving killing people or stealing something. So you go and get in a car, and they drive you somewhere, and you get out, and you put on a mask, and the different masks have different abilities. So it's like rooster, owl, whatever. And then you go to town on these guys in this building. So it's actually pretty hard because all the bad guys are really smart. If a guy with a gun sees you, he shoots you, and he doesn't really miss. See, and it's like if you hit someone with melee weapons, not everyone will hear. So if you use only melee weapons, you can sort of go slowly and go one room at a time, taking guys out. But if there's a room, for example, with a guy on patrol behind the door and another guy sitting on the couch with a gun, you have to like open the door on the first guy to knock him down, get to the guy with the gun before he shoots you, then kill the guy you knock down, or use a gun. But if you use a gun, everyone on the whole map freaking hears it and starts running straight at you. So it's like this pretty challenging, kind of fun action game, and I kind of wish it wasn't mad buggy.
So how buggy is it?
And the sound effects worked. The music did not work, which was disappointing because the credits talked about, we're like music by so and so, and I was like, man, I bet these songs are probably really good. I can't hear them.
Yeah, there's been a nice trend for good music in games, like particularly like FTL has an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, it's pretty crashy a little bit of video errors. If you put it in, I tried to put it in Xbox 360 gamepad mode. It was a little bit flaky, and putting it in gamepad mode because I was playing on the HTPC. Made it not work with the keyboard anymore. It's one or the other, not both. What the hell, guys? Come on. That's basic. That's, step one. Everything should work. But other than that, like if this game worked, it'd be awesome. And I heard, I guess there's going to be a Hotline Miami 2, which I hope will not be as buggy. In other news, Magical Drop V is out.
I heard you had some trouble with that one too.
So Magical Drop V is... from everything I can tell, the ultimate in Magical Drop. All right, all the characters, a bunch of crazy modes, works on the PC, modern graphics, modern software, modern everything, but it's fucking Magical Drop. Hell's yeah. Let's go.
Where's my battle balls?
Justice is the best, right? But if you go to the Steam forums for this game is super crashy, doesn't even launch, crazy bugs for all kinds of people. But the guy who makes it, who doesn't speak very good English, he's actively in that forum thread as recently as a few hours ago on the Steam forums, telling people of all the bugs they're going to fix and how they're going to work on Saturday and do all this stuff to me. So there's a free demo. I downloaded the demo on my work PC. It didn't even launch. I clicked play in Steam and it said starting. The little Steam dialog box disappeared, and then nothing happened, and the game did not launch. I'm going to try the demo on some other computers to see if it works on those. So I recommend doing the same, right? If you can get the demo to work without flaws or crashing, then it's probably worth the $10.
I'll try it because I do
you're
have
crazy Magical Drop.
I do have a butt old video card. I got a GTX 260.
But if the demo doesn't work,
260.
Beware though, because I did read in that forum thread there were some discussions about how you should go to your services and turn off the print spooler. There's a conflict.
So I was gonna say something about that in the forum in the thread about this. If that is ever the answer, that is not the answer.
Exactly. Also, I was reading that like one guy had the game working perfectly, and he was playing through the story mode, and he got really far in, like level something, who knows, deep in the game, and then a certain level was making it crash, so he couldn't get past that. And like that is the worst, right? Because you could be fooled even if you do the demo to see if it's going to work, and then you pay for it, and then you can't beat it because it's buggy. So maybe you should wait like a few weeks on this one, see if this guy or the development team is actually going to fix it like they say. And I think they will fix a lot of the bugs. If they're actively posting in the Steam forum, I trust that they're actually going to do something, but I'm not going to give them the money until I see that something.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Meaning the demo runs.
Not only do I have plenty of games, but I bought XCOM while it was on sale.
I did not.
And you know how much I've played of it?
Nothing.
According to Steam,
0.
3 minutes.
All right.
I started it, and I started playing through the sort of like, here's how to play the game.
And it was XCOM.
And it was great. And then I stopped playing it to go play Counter Strike.
There you go.
So
there you go. Magical Drop V, Hotline Miami.
What else did I buy?
Pretty good games that were mad cheap during the sale. Still kind of cheap.
Speaking
but
of
way
mad
buggy
cheap,
crashy.
Guns of Icarus Online was on sale, and so was and is as of right now Counter Strike Go.
There was actually a Counter Strike complete
it's
pack.
$7.50.
There was a Counter Strike complete pack that was $10. They got you every Counter Strike ever. If you didn't have any of them, that was a good deal. And also, Super Hexagon, for anyone who doesn't have an iPhone or iPad, is now on the Steam store for like $2. And the PC version might be much more playable than the iPhone version. And in addition, they have a 2-pack for $3 and change. Since I already have the iOS one, Rim should buy the 2-pack for $3 and give me the other one, because I think on the PC I could do much better than I could on the phone.
Sadly, though, if you want to... You want to see where the state of all that is right now? Dota 2 is still far and away the most popular game on Steam.
Yeah, it has been for quite a while.
I know. Football Manager number 2.
That's always been up there.
Team Fortress 2 is next. Civ 5 has had a huge resurgence lately.
Well, they just had that Gods and Kings thing was on super sale,
Exactly.
right? And there was also a Civ 5 super pack during the sale. So a bunch of people who never bought Civ 5 all bought the whole thing for mad cheap with an expansion.
So number 5 is Counter Strike 1.6.
There you go.
Global Offensive is down to number 10, and Source is even below that.
Whoa.
Yeah, Global Offensive only has, 20-ish thousand players.
That's because half the people got banned for leaving competitive games early.
Yeah.
See, Civ 5 actually, has a inflated concurrent player figure because you play Civ 5 for longer amounts of time, right? So more players will overlap to get a higher peak number, whereas a game with a shorter play time...
Not because the current number is also higher at any given point.
Okay. No, that's what I'm saying, is that they're showing you a current number and they're showing a peak today.
So the current
Both
and peak,
of those...
the current and peak are almost identical all the time. Meanwhile, Counter-Strike's peak is more than double its current at any given time.
Right, but this is what I'm telling you.
Except at the peak.
This is what I'm telling you, is those numbers are numbers of players simultaneously either now or at some point during the day, right? It is not the total number of people who have played at some point at any time today. None of those numbers are that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Civ 5, that peak number, because you play that game for hours at a time, right? That is probably much closer to the total number of people who have played at any point today, right? Whereas the Counter-Strike number, it's like, yeah, okay, there might only be 20,000 people playing Counter-Strike right now. But if we add up anyone who has launched and played a single round of Counter-Strike during the entire past 24 hours, that number is probably well above the peak and current numbers, which is why I wish they would give you that third number of people who have played this game at all in the past 24 hours, as opposed to only these two figures that are number of players at the same exact moment now and number of players at the same exact moment at any time in the past 24 hours.
But anyway, things of the day. This is a video I saw this weekend. It is an ad for the Central Institute of Technology in Western Australia.
Well, we're not going close to that, are we?
And it's a snap. It's kind of a spoof on the sort of the kinds of ads you see for colleges. It's actually pretty funny, and I recommend you watch to the end.
Okay, is that it?
The only thing I have to say is that this is kind of a sanctioned ad for the university, which makes me really respect that university.
Okay.
Not that I'm going to ever visit that place because it's in the western side of Australia.
Maybe one day. We know in the world, right, there are instruments that everyone knows, right? And then there are the weird instruments that are slightly weird, but they're still normal. You see them played, they're useful, right? Like oboes. It's like, a lot of people on the street, maybe most of them wouldn't even know an oboe if they saw one, but orchestras fucking use oboes. If you go, there's going to be an oboe there, right? But then there are other instruments that are very rare because they're very not useful, but someone invented them and some crazy instrument making guy somewhere produced some number of them, and they're good for novelty reasons, and extremely weird musical pieces might require one or two weird instruments of some kind. So here I have a video of this dude named Jose Valentino, and he is playing a double contrabass flute. Now,
a contrabass flute, a single one, is already a rarely, if ever, used thing.
Okay, so he plays this the video is kind of backwards because he plays the double contrabass and then plays the single contrabass. I would have played the single and then been like, all right, here's the double. But he does the double first. The double one basically is so bass. You can barely hear it. You hear the air coming out of his mouth going like more than you hear the bass from the flute. That could just be because of the way it was recorded, and maybe if you were in the room with him, you would hear the flute noise.
No, like
more.
I'll say this: when I was in a jazz band, we had a bass flautist for.
Well, that's a single bass flute, which is slightly weird, but still a useful instrument.
But the thing is, that was only used for these sort of haunting accents or beatboxing solos, and nothing else.
Yep. So the single contrabass flute, however, while also extremely weird and not so useful, you can actually hear it in the YouTube video. It sounds pretty good. You could make some good music with that thing. That would be enjoyable to people.
So in the meta moment, the book club book was The Name of the Wind. by Patrick Rothfuss. It's all done. The episode's up. Everything's out. The new book club, which I'm going to start up as soon as I type it all in, is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic. You guys should read it if you haven't read it. I haven't read it, so don't feel dumb unless you don't read it by the time I read it.
I also have not read it, but I have begun. I read a few pages. I'm still reading other books
three-quarters of the second book in the King Killer Chronicle. And you know what? I'm done with those books.
So
bad news.
I do want to say, though, it's about to be December, right? So the episode for the book club book might occur in late December, if not after MagFest, right?
We'll see when it happens.
It's either going to be right before New Year's when I have a week off of work, or it's going to be after MagFest, right? So you have some time to read this mother.
Yeah, that's why I haven't even updated it yet.
Yep. Any other meta moments?
We have an official GeekNights Counter Strike Global Offensive server. If you want to play Counter Strike Global Offensive with us and people in our forum, go to it. It is geeknights.game.nfoservers.com. That's geeknights.game.nfoservers.com.
Sunday, Saturday. So
also, very briefly, a while ago, dude emailed us with a question. And Scott covered this in the newsletter. So one, if you're not subscribed to the Geek Nights email newsletter, you should, because it has content that is not in the show, not on the website, not in the forum.
And people read it, and so far, nobody has unsubscribed from it, which I find strange.
It's a good newsletter. Scott does a good job. It has its own thing of the day and everything. But SR.A sent us some questions, and I said, I will answer these on the show the next time we record a Tuesday show. We basically hadn't recorded a normal Tuesday show since then because we'd recorded ahead, and then we had hurricane. All this stuff happened. So this is the first show that I'm live recording since I said I would do that.
Okay.
So I would like to answer the question. Now, if you subscribe to the newsletter, you can see that Scott gave his own answer to this question as well, which I will
do not agree with my answer?
No, I'm just not going to paraphrase it here. They'll have to subscribe to the newsletter to get future ones, and to find out what was in that one, they'd better make a friend. I hear there's an underground swapping market for old newsletters.
I think MailChimp actually hosts HTML versions of the newsletters on their site if you can get the links. Like, if you go to the newsletter email and you click on, view this email in your browser, you'll get a URL, and you can just share that URL, and anyone can use that URL to read the newsletter.
So, first of all, regarding Rim's post, do cheap tactics ruin online multiplayer? Rim states that if you are playing in a competitive game, you play to win.
You gonna read this whole thing?
Not the whole thing. By any means necessary without cheating. I understand your point, but don't you think there is a line beyond which there is no point in winning because you are not playing the same game anymore? And don't you think it's unethical to use cheap tactics that were not meant to be there, like snaking? And an example is presided here. Imagine if in Mario Kart DS, if you could hit A 100 times, you would instantly win the race.
Okay.
Should you use that or not?
Well, can the guy get around the track the normal way before you press A 100 times?
Let's say there's no chance of that.
Okay, because if he can do that, then you probably want to race, because pressing A 100 times is not going to win before someone else wins.
So, of course, my opinion is that, in general, any game that has a tactic that is so cheap that it can win the game trivially is a very poorly designed game.
Right. Well, cheapness, right? What is cheapness? Cheapness is...
Did you get to the chapter in Garfield's book on what cheap is yet?
I already know what it is. I don't even need to read that. Cheapness is when you have a tactic or move or strategy available in a game that is legal, that is extremely low effort, is extremely easy to do. Anyone can figure it out and execute it trivially, but is extremely powerful and puts you way ahead. So it'd be like
a very high return on investment.
Yes, it's like if you're playing Street Fighter and it's like there was one guy, a new character, and his jab did a half life bar of damage. That would be cheap because anyone can push the chuck and jab button. It's so easy and it takes away so much damage. Why would you choose any other character? Whereas to do a half bar of damage with someone else, you maybe need to execute a combo, which is rather difficult, and you need to get it to hit. Yeah, so that's what cheap is low effort, high reward.
Now, I play to win. So, for example, Mario Kart DS, I only ever snaked.
Once you knew you could do it.
As soon as I learned to do it, I snaked because that was the strategy to beat the game. There's no way I was going to let myself lose a race that I could win. And as a result, I ended up not playing the game much. Now, it would have been fine to try to play the game and kind of patch around that by saying like no snaking, but then you have to very extremely precisely define what snaking means, and it becomes a prisoner's dilemma situation.
See, the way I see it is I wish they would have just implemented the same. It's going to talk about Mario Kart because everyone loves it. Why not?
Mario Kart is such a great example of all these things.
Super Mario Kart Super Circuit, the best one. You could only get blue sparks once per corner. You couldn't just sort of like slide sideways in a straightaway. That fucking didn't do shit, right? If you went around a corner perfectly with the drift, right, it would give you 1 blue spark as your reward. And that was all you could do, right? That was the maximum snakiness you could get out of that game. And I think if they would have that's sort of what they intended. You know, if you look at, say, what's the one with the 2 people, Double Dash? It was sort of the same idea. If the other character sitting in the back seat shifts the weight to help you go around the corner faster with the drift, you would get the blue sparks. And that was the intent of the mechanic. The problem wasn't how they programmed it, is that you could just, if the straightaway was wide enough, you could drift in the middle of it and it would give you sparks, and you could just keep doing it over and over.
Now, I would argue that it's pointless to argue what the intent of the game designer was.
I agree with that as well, but
now,
the only reason I know the
the
intent is because of Super Mario Kart Super Circuit.
Yeah, but that could still be argued.
It is. I admit that, but I'm just saying is that if
But
I were
here's-
going to create rules to police a Mario Kart DS tournament and I wanted to eliminate snaking, the rule would be you can get blue if you get a blue spark that is not on a corner, and if
What defines the corner? Does a slight bend in the track count?
we would define the corners on every single track what they are.
Yeah, how do you officiate that without spectators?
We would have we would need a spectator for every single driver.
All right, so now you have fallible humans and no way to do a replay.
We would
and
have
also,
a video replay
Okay.
of the entire race.
So what is the punishment for snaking?
Disqualification.
All right.
Or
so,
you could do it like
So here's what I'm
or
getting
you
at.
restart the race, like if someone has a false start in the 100
So
meter
here's
dash.
what I'm getting at. If a bunch of players agree to change the rules of the game, it is technically a different game, but so what? We're fine. It's still effectively...
It's like you play Magic in a tournament. Certain cards are banned, right? It's the same
But
thing.
it's still Magic, but it's like Magic, version 1.0.8.7.
Exactly.
So, but it's still Magic in the sense of the history and the what the word means. Kind of like how hockey is still hockey, even though the rules have been different
Every year.
Yeah, but the difference is that here, what Scott's talking about, we have all these people playing together in person. We have an objective external way to enforce the rule we have all agreed upon. The only way you could really play Mario Kart online, or even in person in most cases, was such that there is no possible way to enforce a rule of no snaking. And even worse, in online play, because Nintendo doesn't let you talk to people, there is no way to even enforce a social contract. There is no way to interact with the other players and come to consensus, or to punish someone who doesn't follow the rule. The only way you can even have the rule is by putting it like in your name.
Yeah, even if you could start a race and say no snaking and everyone said, yes, I agree, no snaking, you still couldn't define snaking amongst you. So someone's inevitably going to do something someone else considers to be snaking and win, and the other people will be like, oh no, we allow 2 sparks. And it becomes playground rules again, right? Where it's like, no backsies.
You didn't
no
shoot me.
backsies.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, all right, so we can't have that bullshit.
Yep. So mods like that to change the rules of a game to eliminate a cheap tactic only work if you have a strong social contract that can actually enforce the rule, and you can all agree what the change should be before you start playing.
Which usually means you're playing a game in a room with friends together, and you have a social contract, or you're playing in a strict tournament setting.
But, for example, if I started losing at all in a Mario Kart online, even if I hadn't snaked up to that point, I would snake whenever no one could see me to catch up, because I want to win.
Right, it's like if you could decide to restart a 100-meter dash if you're behind, it's like, yeah, I'll restart it 100 times until I'm not.
But for example, the thing we always use in lectures is Counter Strike. If you really think that the AWP is OP, you as the server administrator just remove it from the list of weapons people can buy. Totally enforced.
Yep.
So briefly, and then we'll get on to the rest of the show. The other question, changing subject, do you think cheating can be considered metagaming? one could say that cheating is only invalid if you get caught. So using a strategy to cheat without getting caught wouldn't be metagaming. Of course, I'm only talking about cheating in a way you get caught, blah, 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 blah. And the answer to that is complicated. What I would say is that, again, it depends on the social contract and the ramifications of cheating. For example,
is he asking if all cheating is metagaming, or is he asking if metagaming is cheating?
Do you think cheating can be considered metagaming?
There's cheating that is not metagaming, and there's cheating that might be considered metagaming.
So let's start with examples first, briefly. If I cheat in hockey, I have too many men on the ice. The rules actually say how that is enforced.
Yeah, it's not metagame at all.
Enforcing it is part of the rules. It's part of the game. A coach might make the decision to put too many men out for a brief period, especially in, like college games, hoping the refs won't notice. And that, while cheating, there is a mechanic for resolving that action.
Yeah, it's not cheating. It's completely. It's actually, I would argue that too many men on the ice. Is it cheating? It's like, well, yes, you're not. It's a rule against that. You are breaking the rule, but at the same time, the game handles that. You go in the box as a penalty for it. You haven't broken the game by doing this, right? You've just broken a rule of the game. But there is a built-in rule and means of mitigating that and continuing the game. Exactly.
The game isn't immediately an asterisk if there's too many men on the ice. Instead,
it's not cheating like, I had cards up my sleeve in poker.
So if there is an in-game punishment to deal with, a contextual result of the cheating, and a means of dealing with it and continuing the game without placing the game under a sort of asterisk situation, then it is not actually cheating. For example, soccer, taking falls, and all these other forms of, quote-unquote cheating are a core part of the strategy of soccer.
Yeah, I mean, there are rules for it, but they don't fucking enforce them.
Or in Fury of Dracula, a board game. If Dracula fucks up or cheats and is caught, there are rules for what happens to Dracula.
It says so in the book exactly what to do if Dracula fucks up.
In which case, it would be a perfectly legitimate strategy. Shady.
For Dracula
and
to
maybe
cheat
a little
on purpose
cheap,
to avoid and not get caught.
Shady and maybe a little cheap, but not cheating in this sense. Now, take a game of Puerto Rico. If I just fucking take a building when no one's looking, one, I've violated something much more severe than the rules of a game like hockey. I violated the social contract among my friends because there is literally nothing in the rules to address that situation.
Nope.
If a player violates the rules of a board game like Puerto Rico, there is no possible recourse except outside
punching
of the game.
in the face.
Stopping the game. If you notice it too late, the game is done. There's no way to fix that. Short of having perfect memory and stepping back through the game to the point it happened and then continuing after preventing the action, you basically have to stop playing the game. And since there is no way in the rules to deal with it, the only way to deal with it is via the social contract of not being friends with that person anymore.
Punch them.
So, in my opinion, it is only cheating if the rules of the game do not address a contextual means of resolving it.
Yeah. I mean, if the rules of the game say, if you trip a guy in hockey, you get 2 minutes in the box, then, you probably shouldn't trip a guy because you want to win.
But for example, if I hauled out a knife and stabbed a dude on the ice in the middle of a hockey game, that game would be asterisk. They'd probably replay it later. I'd go to jail.
Yeah.
It's not like the ref's going to be like, stabbing, 4 minutes.
Yeah, but, tripping a guy, it's like, well, you did it. It happens. It happens a lot, right? It's like we don't suddenly hate you or anything, but,
Or maybe you do, but it's a cheap tactic maybe, but it's part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But doing something that the rules do not address is cheating.
Anyway,
that might have been a little long, but considering how long it took me to do this, Sr.A, those are your answers. If you have any more questions, be sure to email us. We actually respond to emails sometimes.
So, the game Seasons. So I heard about this game from some people on the internet, so I bought it. It's a pretty hot new game. I wanted to talk about a hot new game on the show instead, because you're running out of old games we've all played. So what is the deal with Seasons? Well, the first thing that gets you in this game that you notice is the artworks, which are crazy colorful and pretty cool.
I really like the evil, well, not evil, but the nervous-looking rabbit wizard. I've played him every time.
It's weird. Like, the character designs, like, a lot of them, especially those main characters, like, I'm not too into them. Like, I don't really I wouldn't, want the weird, freaky bunny on my wall or anything, or as my desktop wallpaper. But the style, like the way they're drawn and the bright colors and the high contrast and the high resolution, it's like the quality of it is like, oh, that is so nice. It's just not, it's like a really nice drawing of a thing I don't want to see a drawing of. But
it's fun. It's cute.
Yeah, if you're someone who likes game artworks, this is like, A territory here. The game itself, when I read about it, the thing that made me want to buy it was how this was a confluence of so many different game mechanics that we already knew sort of mashed into one in an interesting way. So here's how the game, this is the basic rundown, right? First, you do a card draft like Seven Wonders, where everyone has 9 cards, and you take one and you pass the rest to the left, and you take one and you pass to the left, and eventually you're left with 9 cards in front of you.
So you're constructing your deck based on an initial set, and this drives the entire game. Everything beyond this deck construction is just moving the mice.
Right. So everyone ends up with 9 cards through a draft like Seven Wonders. And those, however many people are playing, this is going to be 9 times. So if it's a 3-player game, there'll be 27 cards. The deck has a lot more than 27 cards. So we've played it a few times now, and we have probably not really experienced the depth of all the possible cards.
I, however, have won every game I've played, and I used different strategies. It just didn't matter. We'll get to my opinion in a minute, but I'm
still running down the game, and you're jumping ahead.
I'm just saying I'm increasingly sour on the game the more times I win it.
So anyway, you get these 9 cards, and here's the interesting part, is you split them into 3 piles of 3 each. The first 3 cards are your starting hand, the second 3 are for part 2, and the third 3 are for part 3. So this is this beginning setup of the game forces you to create a long-term plan where you say, these are the cards I'm going to have in the second part of the game, and these are the cards I'm going to have in the third part of the game. You have to, you really have to long-term think right from the get-go, what are you going to do in this game? And you can look at those cards later, you just can't pick them up until the time is right. So you really, a lot of games, you just sort of get a starting hand and you make a decision based on what's going on that turn, and you don't really have to think too much about the future. Or maybe there's a game like chess where you have to look at the future, but you're looking at what's possible in the future. In this one, you already know a lot of the future, right? Because you planned that future. And now you have to make that happen. So if you set up a bad future for yourself from the beginning, it's going to be very hard to make it happen no matter what you do.
Now, to balance
if you set
that,
up a good future, then you still have to be able to make it happen, considering all the other things that other players are going to do.
In my opinion, the decisions as to what to put in 1, 2, 3, and also what cards
are
to choose,
relatively obvious.
Trivial.
Yeah, it's not too hard, mostly because there's not too many cards.
Now, more to the point, the real strategy, the game breaks down pretty quickly in that the real strategy is looking at the set of cards in the draft, anticipating what cards other players took,
remembering them,
and will take, and constructing your deck such that you will mitigate the cards they have, know they're coming, know the order they're going to put them in and win. The problem is that is a very high effort for relatively little return, and I, frankly, don't bother with that and still win every time I play.
So the next, all 2 times you play.
Yeah, I've won by so much both times.
So the next thing that happens is you start to play the actual game, and what it does is you have a rondel that goes around in
It
goes around the seasons of the year, and there's 3 years in the game. So the second year is the second part, and the third year is the third part.
So 4 seasons per year, 3 years per game.
And each season has a set of dice, and what you do is you roll those dice. So if you're in winter, you roll blue dice. If you're in summer, you roll yellow dice. Everyone complains about this, and they're right to complain about it. The guy who made this game is the one thing he fucked up. People confronted him on Board Game Geek. He is wrong.
Yes,
he made summer and fire yellow, and he made fall and autumn and air red. What the fuck? Why is the fire not red?
As a result, I refer to them purely as fires and feathers, and I ignore the colors.
I also ignore the colors. But anyway, you roll the season dice associated with the season. And then people each take one die. So it's sort of a Puerto Rico situation, right? I'll take the captain. I'll take the craftsman. Only instead of taking, these cards that are always available every time, you roll dice. So the thing you want might not be available. So everyone picks a die that came up. In different seasons, you're rolling different dice, too. So, the thing you want might not be available that season at all. And you got to get the game to go around.
Now, this ends up already, in terms of review, being... it really influences the game too much. Both times I've played, I have had no more useful actions to take long before the end of the game, and the only chance I will have of being able to make a further decision of any kind is if there happens to come up the option to draw another card to then play.
Yeah, some of the die will allow you to draw another card. So, if you've already used all your cards, which can happen if you play pretty well, or if you picked a bunch of cards that were easy to play at the beginning, then you really need that draw more card thing to happen, because there's really not much you can do in the game to score points besides transmute other than play cards. It's really all about getting resources to be able to play the cards. You roll dice, and you need summoning gate, you need stars, you need all these different elements. You basically need to collect resources from dice and other things in order to be able to put cards on the table. And then what the cards do is sort of the whole game in as getting you victory points, either in the forms of the cards themselves or crystals are also worth points. And you basically go around 3 times doing this.
I found that cards worth a lot of victory points are way more useful than cards that do fucking anything.
Yeah.
And whoever gets the gauntlet that gives you a 1 discount and everything is pretty much guaranteed to win.
That card is ridiculously powerful because it basically makes every card easier to play, and being able to play all your cards is pretty much the hard thing to do in the game. That's what you have to do to win. So, and you lose at the end of the game -5 points for every card you didn't play, and you've got 9 cards minimum to play.
No, what's interesting is the game...
Some people may make you force you to draw more, so that's even worse.
Which for me is great because I play them immediately and get more points.
If you've got the freaking glove.
Which I always do.
You've had twice, right? So
the thing is that this is where the game is interesting because it breaks a few of the sort of standard assumptions of games and standard limitations, especially of card games. Kind of like how Dominion got rid of I have a hand of cards and I kind of play 1 card at a time, or, I have a limited number of actions. Dominion, you play your whole fucking hand every turn.
Yep.
And when I first played Dominion, that was a big deal. That was like doing something.
When we first played Dominion, we were Anime Boston. We were like, fuck this shit. The second time we played Dominion.
Yeah, but it was like this forbidden thing. It was refreshing because there's always the thing you want to do in games that games never let you do because the mechanics tend to break down. This game does that in this sense. You can play as many goddamn cards as you can possibly spend mana on. Or energy tokens or whatever they're called.
Yeah, it's the vocabulary of this game is a little weird. Crystals, energy tokens.
Yeah, and some of them are gauges, but some of them are meters.
By the way, the story of this game is that you're a bunch of wizards and you're all competing to see who's going to become the Archmage. Ooh. And it's a 3-year wizards duel.
Good thing Kavoth didn't show up.
That's another thing. There's 2 different kinds of cards. There's purple and orange. Purple cards are magic items. So when you play those, they're generally just boosts to you. Those are the cards you really want to play a lot of. But there's also these orange cards, which are all familiars, and they all have creature themes, that's like so-and-so the Destroyer or whatever. All those cards sort of damage everybody else at the table, and they usually damage everybody else at the table relatively equally. So you can't sort of target the guy in the lead to do any king making. If you want to fuck people over, you fuck over everyone but yourself with the orange familiar cards.
So the game has no direct fucking, as we call it, or as Richard Garfield calls it, politics.
Yes. But it does have that sort of interaction, right? So, you saw most of the cards during the draft. Not all of them, obviously, but most of them, whether you took them or not. So you know that someone has, whatever card you passed to the left. So you know that, that's going to come around at some point, like the air elemental, which
no one, it was the end of the game. I only had a couple cards left in my hand. None of you expected me to do that.
I knew the air elemental was coming eventually. It just came at a really bad time.
I didn't even care about the attack. I only played it because it's worth a bunch of victory points.
Exactly.
My strategy to win this game is simple. I get cards that help me play more cards or that are worth a bunch of victory points.
And are easy to play.
And otherwise, I just move my mice.
Yep. There really isn't too much to think about once...
Well, no, there are things you can do you can spend a lot of mental effort that is not terribly fun to have a slight edge. For example, Scott played a card, fuck you, that went around the table for the whole rest of the game.
When I played at
bullshit.
Nerd NYC, 2 of those went around the table at the same time.
The problem is that card is only effective if you count out the modulus math of when it's going to hit different people and what resources will be available.
Well, usually it hits anyone who A, doesn't have water, right? So you can play it after everyone has just used their water, or there won't be water for another couple seasons, or B, it hits the first player, because even if the first player has water, when it'll get to them, their turn has already passed, so they can't do anything to get rid of it again because they've already done their stuff this turn. So they get hit, they pass it to the left the next turn with their water, and then the next player to the left of them is obviously the new first player, so they're stuck with it.
Now, so you could count it out and figure out and plan and make that card be fairly effective, but, for example, Phil passed it to me, and then a card came out that we were forced to give up, take back discard or sacrifice a card we had out. So I sacrificed the fucking monster and kept all my real cards.
Yep.
And
so in a way, that card would be beneficial. It's also a very beneficial card.
But there is no way to plan on that beneficial effect unless you spend an unreasonable amount of unfun brain effort.
Yep. It's also that card, just to add to it, right? If you're the person who plays the card, not only can you easily immediately pass it off at the beginning, but it gives you a huge bonus when you immediately play it in the form of, I think it might put your summoning gauge up 1, but I know it gives you 10 crystals. So it's not a bad, if you just play it, it's already helping you and hurting everyone else.
Yeah, except it's almost guaranteed to come around and hurt you very soon.
Even if it comes around and hurts you, you're still better off than everyone else.
The other thing that makes the game interesting, but kind of bad, is that you have crystals are victory points, and you can spend crystals to do stuff. And a lot of attacks remove crystals from you. So you can remove victory points from other people.
And other people will take crystals from you.
The problem is, I tend to play decks strategies, and it seems very effective, where I hover around 0, and these attacks don't hurt me at all. So basically, at every round, there was a thing happening where everyone was losing 4 victory points, except me, because I had 0 victory points on the board. My victory points were all in cards. So as a result, I was effectively gaining 4 victory points on everyone except the person doing that action every round.
Yeah, there are very few cards that, and I think this is actually a problem with the cards, at least when I've played, there are very few cards that attack the cards of other players, right?
And when they do, they're always like, everyone picks a card to take back into their hand.
There's no counter spells, there's no randomly, the worst thing that you can do is make everyone draw, and it only hurts people who are having a hard time playing, who are already losing. If somebody's winning, drawing a card for them is great. So it's like, it's not necessarily a negative. There's no... there's nothing that's like, you choose a card from everyone else's pile, or everyone must sacrifice a card that is, there's some cards that are negative, like the one we just talked about, that are negative victory points. So forcing everyone to sacrifice a card could be good or bad for opponents. There is no universal way that I've found, there might be one I haven't seen, that hurts everyone other than you in the cards as opposed to in the crystals.
Now, my real kind of core problem with the game is just that you have so few options. It is likely, as in, I'd say there's about a 30% chance on any given time it is your turn, that there is literally no action you can take and you just pass.
Mm-hmm.
I pass easily a third of the turns I take in this game.
Yep.
Because there's just nothing you can do. You take some crystals. You don't have the little transmute icons. You can't do that. And transmuting...
You don't want to use your superpower because you lose victory points.
Yep.
You don't have... Your summoning gauge is at max, so you can't play any cards. So you take your energy tokens and your turn's over.
I just fucking sit there. A lot of times I have no cards in my hand.
But
at least it
makes the game go around quickly.
No, it doesn't. People take for fucking ever on their turns.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is that on the one hand, it's quick to decide what to do on your turn, but it's slow because you eventually have a lot of cards in front of you, and everyone has cards in front of them that are always doing stuff. Like, this card does this whenever this happens. So even though you quickly decided on my turn, I'm going to take 2 forests and pass, that's it. Someone else is like, wait a minute, when this happens, this card does this and this card does that. And that ends up being where all the time gets taken up, is all this management and remembering of cards that do things.
So, while the game is relatively simple and should be relatively quick to play,
and it does have interesting mechanics that other games do not have.
And has a light strategic depth because complex strategy is difficult to enact and not terribly fun to enact. The problem is the nature of this game, with all the proper noun cards with tons of text on them and different effects, means that the majority of the people you would ever play this game with will take for fucking ever on their turn.
Yeah, you really, if you want to play...
You cannot play this with people who take time on their turns.
I played it at Nerd NYC, and it took longer than any game I've ever played at Nerd NYC, and the one other smart guy I was playing with said the same thing, and we were playing with the two other people just, like, didn't really get it, and the game took so long. It says on the box 1 hour. I think
it is a 1 hour game.
They really only play tested this, I think, with people who knew how to fucking play card games like, CCGs and things.
Well, and here's what I think is going on. The people who take too long on their turn, it's a fairly simple problem it's not specific to this game, it's universal. In my experience, anyone who takes a long time on their turn in board games typically does not have the sort of generic aptitude for discarding clearly bad decisions or clearly bad choices. They have very poor, to use a Garfield term, they have personally very poor directional heuristics.
Right.
And he end up computing all the different possibilities.
Exactly, because he said a beginner in a game is very likely to not notice a lot of the options. They'll only know about a few things they can do, so their turn is quick because they only can see 3 ways to go, and they pick one of them. A really advanced player can see all the different ways to go, but knows that 90% of the ways to go are completely meaningless, so also has pretty much like 2 or 3 choices and picks one quickly.
Like in chess, I know not to start with the Polish Open.
Right.
As much as I like it.
It's the intermediate players. They can see all the choices, but they don't know that most of those choices are completely stupid and useless. So they're considering each and every one, even though, they're not able to just quickly and swiftly say, yeah, none of those are good ideas. There's really only 2 good ones. So they take for fucking ever. And that's the kind of person you're going to find at board game night.
Now, it's funny because if you go to a convention like PAX, there's fewer of those people because most of the people in tabletop are either before that point in their board gaming career or after that point. It's like that point only exists in quantity in like local board gaming groups that meet up somewhere.
Yep.
But it's an intractable problem, which is why this game fails in the sense that the strategy level is perfect for people at that level. But because of all the text and all the fiddliness, those are the people who take the longest on their turns, thus making it an unbearable game to play.
I think this game could do well, right, if they sort of changed it up a little bit, mathematically, right? Like if you had more cards, if there were different cards of more variety, right? And if you weren't penalized so heavily for not playing every single freaking card, then the game would be more dynamic as you went around, as opposed to just sort of after you plan the game, it's a race to play all your cards, and whatever they do, they do. And also, the drafting thing at the beginning, I want to experiment with this. It's everyone draws 9, and everyone ends with 9. Why not draw 15 and end with 9?
Sure, you'll get more powerful. Everyone will. Maybe it'll be a Dune situation then.
Yeah, or why not do something like, everyone gets, 12, and it's you can either take one and put it in front of you, or you can take one and throw it out of the game. Or if you mixed up that draft at the beginning, then I think people would end up with a lot more interesting. Or maybe like everyone draws, some number of cards. You give one to yourself and you give one to someone else to start with. And then you pass. I think a lot of things will be mixed up in that draft phase, such that and then so someone gave you a card during the draft. You look
because
at it,
the draft phase is basically 80% of the game.
Right. So now if you mixed up that draft phase a little bit and you had different cards or more of them or whatever, someone gives you a card during the draft. It's going to be in your hand. You've got to play it during the game. So now when you get the next set to pick from, you see a really awesome card in there you would have picked otherwise, but now you got to pick a different one because it'll help you deal with the shitty card someone else gave you that you're stuck with. So and then you end up handing that other really good card to the next guy and so on and so forth.
So I think if I had to recommend this game, I would actually recommend you not buy it.
Yeah,
and I say generically because if you're, the kind of people I would want to recommend this game to, like I said, are the people who, the sort of novice board gamers. It's like a light game you can play relatively quickly, but odds are you're going to end up playing with people who will take so long on their turns that you will hate this game.
Yep.
And if you're an advanced board gamer, The only time you should buy this game is if you are bored and you've played every game you already own to death and you're looking for something novel. That's really...
Yeah, that's really the biggest benefit of this game is the artwork and the novelty of this combination of mechanics that, are some of which are in other games, but really aren't all together in one place. And you will learn something by playing it if you're big into games, which we did learn something from it, a few things. One more thing I want to say about this game is that the boxing of this game is the most wasted space of any game ever. It's like a deck of cards, a bag of chits, and a few boards, and it's in a giant full-size box that has got to be at least 80-90% air, right? This needs reboxing so hard, harder than any game I've ever owned. So if you're the kind of person who wants a game that doesn't take up a lot of space, this is a good game to get because you can rebox it. But if you keep the original box, man, this game is going to eat up your whole freaking shelf for no reason at all. And I hate that, and I wish people would stop that.
So yeah, and as a result, there are so few people I can recommend this game for that I actually, despite relatively enjoying it, have to say that I would not recommend anyone buy this game.
I'm trying to think of any group to recommend it to, and the only one I can think of, right, is if you are someone who...
Bored elitists?
No. If you are somebody who wants to sort of move over into the European board gaming situation, right, and you want to learn some of these mechanics like action taking and... right? But you come from... a CCG kind of background, like that's your right? Then
I see where you're going.
If you're
I take back my
right, if you're a CCG person, this could be a transition game into the Euro board gaming world because it has both aspects combined, right?
But what I would say to you there is harden the fuck up and just play El Grande instead.
Of course, but that at least what other game does that really?
Yeah, that's the only thing I could recommend it to.
I mean, Agricola a little bit.
Either that, or if you're a bored elitist in board games like us.
If anyone wants a copy of Seasons,
or
I'm likely only to play it a few more times.
If I'm gonna make another recommendation, this is a good game. If you are someone who really enjoys German board games or board games in general, have played a lot of them, have started to understand them, and want to design your own games, use this game to see some mechanics that don't really work that well and kind of follow through a game and try to identify like where it fails and see if you can come up with ways to fix it.
It's a game that is, it has problems, but it's not one of those games that's like, oh, so obviously broken, right? Like Mario Kart.
Or what was that board game we had with the Greek guys?
That was just poorly written rules.
Yeah.
That wasn't, I think that game, if you figured out the rules, actually not so bad. Whatever. But Hellas. But this game is a game that's like just slightly problematic. So if you really want to learn a lot about game design and a lot of the pros and cons of all the different mechanics it uses, they're all only slightly broken, and only someone who's really learned a lot about games will be able to see the flaws in this. I think a lot of people will play this game and who aren't like us and will think it's kind of pretty great and won't
I can
think
anticipate
anything's wrong with it at all.
I had the entire discussion I would have with certain unnamed people about this game, where they would tell me that, one, I haven't solved the game, that I'm giving it a short
I haven't
shrift.
solved it, right?
Well, in the sense that I'm giving it a short shrift, and they would say that it's much more strategically complex than I give it credit for.
Maybe if you added a fistful of extra cards.
Well, there is depth there. The problem is it's Dota depth. It's depth that is not enjoyable to explore, nor is it analogous to the game itself. This has been Geek Nights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geek Nights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geek Nights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geek Nights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.